How you guys doing? This is Codems Official, CEO. I'm sure you'll recognize I'm not in my truck. My buddy, he let me borrow it for a few more days, and then he wanted his own truck back. Imagine that. He wanted to drive his own truck. This is my room in the barracks. It's set up like a hotel for the most part. I'm not going to really show you, maybe another day, but my roommate just moved out. So therefore, I can create the video in here without interrupting anyone. Now, I'm sure I will get another roommate at some point, but that's all right. Just recently, my dad found this 94 copper Corvette on the Facebook or some other online car place. So, and it was around here. So he contacted the guy. I talked to the guy. I met up with him, looked at the car. The car was like a barn find, but it wasn't in a barn. So it was dirty. It was, even though it was decent shape, but for the year, you will find a lot of paint peeling, paint scratches. A couple of the interior pieces were missing, but the overall was pretty good. The engine was dirty. It was leaking oil. Well, I also had 120,000 miles on it, and especially for the year, you're going to find that on the LT Motors. Now he owns two 94s copper, but it's his fourth Corvette that he's owned overall. His first two were torch red 95s. 94 copper Corvette. They are very rare cars. I do not know exactly how rare they are. I just know out of all the colors, they've made like 116, and then like guys parted it out. I'm sure there's someone that's crashed it. Then the Corvette Museum has the only ZR1, and so then it gets even more rare as you go down the list. And of course, it was at the commissary because we can go over there, and of course, the guy could meet up with it. I wasn't able to get any videos with me doing the whole walkthrough and everything. I mean, for my Genesis coupe, if I could get that in copper because I've seen them around, I would. It just looks awesome. You don't see copper Genesis coupes around, so I'm sure they're pretty rare too. You mostly see blacks, whites. I got a black one, a lot of red ones, a few blues, and then like that one copper. So as I took the Corvette on a little drive, just kind of right around there in the parking lot or up and down the road or whatever. The acceleration is very slow, so it needed a tune-up for sure. But once it picked up speed, then it was okay. But it's a Corvette. It's supposed to just take off from the line, and it doesn't. So it definitely needs a tune-up. And then it was overheating easily. And then, so we had that car shipped down to Georgia. I bought the car for my dad, and then he's going to pay me back a little bit or whatever he wants to do. It's not really bothering me. And he found out why the car was overheating so quickly. Well, it was because there was no coolant in the system, or very little. This guy bought the car and didn't do anything with it. He just tried flipping it, but he lost money because he thought he could get more money for it than what it, in the current state that it was worth. He couldn't because the car did need quite a bit of work. And then the guy even bought a new alternator from O'Reilly's. They gave him the wrong one. So when I was even testing out, it would just die randomly. So at first we're like, well, I was thinking alternator, but then everybody else is thinking battery. But I was like, well, the battery looks brand new, even though it's a Walmart battery. But I was like, well, if he just bought the alternator, then maybe it is the battery. And then I talked to other people about the situation, and they're like, oh yeah, it'd be the battery. It'd be the battery. It wouldn't be the alternator. I was like, well, how? If your car is on and it just dies, typically that means the battery ran out of charge because the alternator is not charging it enough. And then some people were like, no, it is the battery. It is the battery. Well, after we found out it was the alternator, the O'Reillys gave him the wrong one. So the guy had to go buy, he returned that, got the right one. And then my dad installed it just today, and it works just fine. Other than the slow acceleration. The suspension, though, it is old, but it does seem like it is holding pretty well still. Seems to have, has that stiff, sporty, or Corvette style suspension. The brakes are smooth. The transmission is smooth. It was just the engine. And then this guy even had this, he rigged up a wire from the fan to a little switch and going to the battery. And the switch was inside the car. He's like, yeah, when the car starts to overheat, you just flip the switch. Well, I was thinking, well, the fan is supposed to turn on automatically when the car heats up. So why does this thing need a switch? Well, my dad got looking at it, and then he's ripping all that wires out. He's going to get the fan working how it's supposed to. It's like a project car, but at least it like runs. It moves around. The people before him really didn't take care of this thing. They could have done much better. And the guy could have got more money for it. And then this guy, so he had his buddy with a trailer take the car down to Georgia. And then we were going to put my coupe on it and bring it back up. But because he's not a actual company, a shipping company, we weren't sure, because I would also need some of my electronics, because I miss my Xbox. I am an Xbox fan. I don't really bag on PlayStations that much. It's just more if someone starts to talk a little too much about it, then I like to get in the conversation. You can comment below if you like Xbox or PlayStation more. You can start that debate if you want. But that also sounds like another video for some other day. Probably when the new PlayStation and Xbox comes out. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Facebook. I have a link down below in the description on all of my videos. This is Cody Evans Official, CEO, over and out.